So just as a reminder, we got to factor the first. So what times what is 6 that adds to be a -7? Go ahead. -6 and a -1, and it doesn't matter which order you have that in, okay? Now I'm going to do the denominator, okay? Next. Now this is a binomial. So the first thing we look for, do we have a GCF? Yeah, what's my GCF here?
T.
T, how many T's?
Squared.
2, right? So T squared, and then I'm left with 2T minus 3. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, and when we look in here, this is not a difference of 2 squares, right? Because we don't have T squared, and also 2 and 3 are not perfect squares. Okay, now let's look at the numerator. What's my GCF of 4T cubed and 9T? T, and I'm going to put this up here for a second. T, and if I take a T out, what am I left with? 4T squared minus 9. Now, what do you notice about this 4T squared minus 9? It's a difference of 2 squares. So I could do 1 plus and 1 minus. What's the square root of 4T squared? 2T, so that's going to go in the front. And the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, is everyone okay with that? All right, now let's do the denominator. Again, A is 1, so that makes it a little bit easier for us. What times what is 24 that adds to be -10? What times what is positive 24 but adds to be a -10? You don't know?
-6 and -4.
-6 and a -4, right? Huh? Yeah. All right. So now, since we're in multiplication and we're all in factor form, since it's all multiplication, I can cross simplify things now. What do we see that is exactly in the top and in the bottom that I can cross out?
T minus
T minus 6. Yep, because those are ones. What else? 2T minus 3. Yep. Anything else?
the T's.
It's glitching out. Yeah, I don't know. It does that sometimes. I think it's my HDMI cord because I brought it from home, to be honest. Okay, and I heard a T. We have 1 T here and we have 2 T's here. So what do I do with those exponents?
Subtract them.
Subtract them. And where is it going to end up at? On the bottom.
It's just T at the bottom.
Okay, yep, so I have just T on the bottom. Jackson, that's okay. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so that will cancel out and I'll be left with 1 down here. Okay, so now in the numerator, what do I have left? I have T minus 1 times 2T plus 3 over, we have a T and we have a T minus 4. And this would be our simplest form. No clue why that's going. Okay. All right, any questions with that? Yes. It doesn't state, so we don't need to worry about it. Okay, your quiz for next week, it'll tell you, make sure you state the restrictions for you. Okay, but it will straight up tell you. If it doesn't tell you, you don't need to do it. Okay, all right. Looking at C, what does a square actually mean? Times itself, right? So isn't this the same thing as x minus y over x plus y times x minus y over x plus y? Is that the same thing as the square? That's weird. Yeah, it is, okay? And then we still have this numerator and denominator. Now, can I factor anything in my numerator? X squared plus y squared. It's a binomial. Is it a difference of 2 squares? No, so I can't do anything with that numerator. So it's just going to say, what about x squared minus y squared? Yeah, isn't that the same thing as x plus y times x minus y? No. What do you guys notice? Do we have anything we can cross out?
The x minus y's.
Yep, I can see an x minus y here, x minus y there. Anything else? Nope, I don't see anything. So my numerator is going to stay x minus y times x squared plus y squared. And then in the denominator, this x plus y occurs how many times? 1, 2, and 3. So could I just raise it to the third power instead of writing it 3 times? Yeah. Okay. All right, any questions with that? All right, so I'm going to go ahead, before we do dividing, we're going to go ahead and finish these 6.1 or 6.2 notes, the back of that, where we're raised to a power, which the good thing is we've kind of already did that, haven't we? We just did it on parts, on that second question up there, C, okay? Now, we learned exponents 2 different ways, where we could just raise everything to it, or we could have just wrote it twice, right? A times B, A over B, if that was like A over B squared, couldn't I just write it as A over B times A over B? Or we could have taken that exponent and raised it to everything and make it A squared over B squared. So you can do it 2 different ways in that. Anytime I see a plus or minus sign, I tend to write it multiple times, okay? Because we got to factor it anyways. So instead of distributing it to everything, it's easier to just factor it, okay? Or to write it twice or 3 times, okay? So as I look at x over 3 cubed, okay, we could do it again 2 ways. That could be x over 3 times x over 3 times x over 3. Or we can just raise everything to the third power, right? So it could be x to the third power over 3 to the third power, right? And then what is 3 to the third power? Isn't that 27? Yeah. So it's x cubed over 27. Okay. So again, we can either write it out, then simplify it, or you can do it, raise everything to it, then simplify it. Okay. Either way, doesn't matter. Okay. Now, looking at this, we have an even exponent, right? So if we take a negative and square it, is my final answer going to be positive or negative? It's going to be positive because a negative times a negative is a positive, okay? So we know we can just raise everything to the second power. So we can have c to the second power over 2 to the second power, which ends up being what? C squared over 4. There you go. Okay, so I did the shortcut in that sense. You don't need to, okay? You can do the long method if you want to, where you write it both twice and then multiply, okay? Now, looking at B, do you guys want to do it the shortcut or the writing it out? Shortcut, you guys? Okay. So we're going to raise everything to this exponent. So we're going to have 4 to the second power, m to the second power, over 7 to the second power, n to the what power? To the 4th power. Why is it to the 4th power? What do we do with those exponents? Not add, we actually multiply them. Yeah, multiply. Okay. When we add, Jacob, is when we are multiplied. So if it was like x squared times x squared, then it'd be x to the 4th too. Okay. All right, so now simplify. What is 4 squared? 16, m to the second. What is 7 squared? 49, n to the 4th. Now, can I simplify 16 over 49? I get that look, I'm not sure yet. Can you simplify 4 over 7? No. If you can't simplify 4 over 7, you won't be able to simplify 16 over 49, okay? The only time you'll be able to simplify if you multiplied by the same number. Here we're raising it to a power, so you won't ever be able to simplify that, okay? All right, let's look at F. negative x over 4y squared times negative 4y over x, okay? So again, this is an even exponent. So will this fraction end up being a positive or a negative? A positive, right? So now let's do our shortcut, okay? So x to the second power over 4 to the what power? Second power. Y to the second power. Okay. Now let's simplify. What is 4 squared? 16. Y to the second. And now we're multiplying it by negative 4y over x. Do we know how to cross simplify? Yeah, let's go ahead and cross simplify. What about the 4 and the 16? Can I cross simplify that? Yep. This becomes a negative 1. And what does 16 become? 4, because you're dividing out a 4. X's. We have 2 on top, 1 on the bottom. So what do I do with those exponents? We subtract them, and they always end up in the where the larger one is. So what's 2 minus 1? 1. So I'm going to have x to the first, or just x. That becomes a 1. And then what about my y's? It's going to become y to the 2 minus 1 again is 1. And where is it going to end up, on the top or the bottom? The bottom, because 2 is on bottom. So cross those out. So now let's multiply. What's x times negative 1? Negative x over 4y times 1? 4y. And there you go. And then C. Okay, do you guys want to just write this one twice, or do you want to do the shortcut? Or not? I don't know if it's necessarily a shortcut, but do you want to raise everything to it, or just write it twice? You said raise it? Okay. All right. 5 to the second power. X to the 2 times 2 is 4. Y to the second. Over 2 to the second. Z to the 6. Good. Times C squared over 5x cubed y. All right. Let's go ahead and simplify. What is 5 squared? 5 squared is 25, x to the 4th, y squared. What's 2 squared? 4, z to the 6th, times z to the 2nd, over 5x cubed y. All right, let's cross simplify if we can. 25 and 5, what does that simplify to? 5 over 1. X to the 4th and x to the 3rd becomes x to the 1st. And where does it end up? On the top. Why? Because the 4 is bigger, so x to the 1. All right. Let's do the y's. Y squared and y. So we're going to subtract. So 2 minus 1 is 1. And where is it going to end up? On the top again, right? All right. Let's do our z's. 6 minus 2 is 4. And where is that going to end up? On the bottom. All right. Are we done cross simplifying? Yes, so let's go straight across now. 5 times x times y times 1, which is 5x y, over 4 times z to the 4th times 1 is 4z to the 4th. And there you go. And that would be your final answer. Okay. Yes. Nope, you always go to factor form. So like if I'm going from up here, x, y, and z couldn't have been 0. Or like since this one's multiplication, yeah, none of them would be 0. Yeah. Mostly you do it when you're just simplifying them, not like the multiplying or anything like that, dividing. Okay, any questions with this part? So that was the end of 6.2. Okay, 6.3 is just dividing fractions. But guys, if you can multiply, you can divide. Do you know how to factor? Do you know how to cross simplify? Yeah. Do we know how to divide fractions? Can we actually divide fractions? We can to a point, right? But what do we actually have to do to be able to do it? Multiply by its reciprocal. Yeah. We keep it, we change it, and we flip it. So A over B divided by C over D is equal to A over B times what? D over C. Okay, so to divide fractions, we multiply by its reciprocal. Okay, so the first fraction always stays the same. The second always flips, right? Okay. So if we see x over 2y divided by xy over 4, this is actually the same thing as x over 2y times what? 4 over x times y. So we keep it, we change it, we flip it. Now, can we simplify? Yeah, what can be the first thing to simplify? 2 and the 4, right? And what does 2 over 4 or 4 over 2 simplify to? 2 over 1. Anything else? The x's. We have a single x and a single x. So what's going to happen to those? They're just going to cancel out. So those cancel out. Anything else? No, because the two y's are on the bottom, right? So they have to stay. So in the numerator, what's 1 times 2? 2. And what's y times y? Y squared. And there you go. You just divided it. Okay. Right. In C, we're going to keep it, we're going to change it, we're going to flip it, right? So we're going to have 18 over x squared minus 25 times what? Yep, x plus 5 over 24. Now, this is right back where we were in bell work and yesterday's lesson or Tuesday's lesson. What do I need to do first here? What's the first thing I always had to do as soon as I see plus or minus signs?
Factor.
Factor, yeah, factor. So 18 can't be factored, but can x squared minus 25 be factored? Yeah, go ahead and factor that real quick for me. What does x squared minus 25 factor to? Give you a second to think about that. How do we factor x squared minus 25? It's a difference of 2 squares. So it's going to be x plus 5 times x minus 5. Good. All right, the second one, x plus 5, can I factor that? No. So I'm going to leave it as x plus 5. And I always like putting it in parentheses because I think it makes it neater and it's easier to see things. And then 24, I can't. All right, so now let's cross simplify. What can I simplify here? I see x plus 5s can cancel. Good. Anything else? 18 and 24.
18 and 24.
18 and 24. 6. So this becomes a 3, and this becomes a 4. So now let's go ahead and multiply. The only thing left in the top is 3 over, and what's in my denominator? X minus 5 and 4. And I'm always going to put the number in front there. And there you go. That's your final answer. All right, so let's look at B. keep it, change it, and flip it, right? So let's keep this. So we're going to have x squared plus 3x minus 10 over 2x plus 6. This changes to multiplication, and we're going to flip the second one. So x squared minus x minus 12 is going to be in the numerator, and x squared minus 4 is in my denominator. Okay. Now, once we get that, we need to factor, right? So now, since we're in multiplication, we need to factor so we can cross simplify. The numerator is a trinomial, and again, a is 1, so it makes it a little bit easier for us. So it's going to be x and x. All right. So what times what is negative 10 that adds to be 2? Oh, yeah, why did I write 2? Let's try 3, sorry. Thank you. So what times what is negative 10 that adds to be 3? That makes more sense, right? We can factor it now. Okay, 5 and 2. Which one's negative? Negative 2 and a positive 5. Okay. Good. Yeah, that adds to be 3, not 2. All right, look at 2x plus 6. What can I factor out of 2x plus 6? A 2, right? We have a GCF of 2. And if I factor out a 2, what am I left with? X plus 3. Everyone get that okay? Yeah. All right, and the next one, we have a trinomial again. A is 1. That makes it a little easier for us, right? So x in the front. Did I write this one right? Yeah. All right. What times what is negative 12 that adds to be negative 1? Negative 4 and a positive 3. Perfect. Okay. And then my denominator of x squared minus 4. We don't have a GCF like that 2x plus 6, but we do know what there. It is a difference of 2 squares. So we're going to do 1 plus and 1 minus. What's the square root of x squared? X. And what's the square root of 4? 2. Good. All right. So now what can we cross out? I'm doing so good, I thought. I don't know. My projector's acting weird, guys, so that's why I'm like kind of stalling here. All right, what can we cross out? X minus 2, I heard. And x plus 3. Anything else? Nope. So what would I be left with in my numerator? X plus 5 times x minus 4. And then my denominator, I have a 2 and x plus 2. And that would be my final answer there. Okay. All right, D. I'm going to go ahead. Are you guys okay if I factor the first one since it doesn't switch first? So I have a little bit more room. All right, so now my A is not 1, is it? So now we have a little bit more work, yeah? So what's my A times C here? 2 times 12 is 24. So what times what is 24 that adds to be negative 11? What times what is 24 that adds to be negative 11? Negative 8 and negative 3. Abby, did you have your hand up too? Yeah, I'm sorry. I cut off the thing. Sorry. Did you have the right ones? Yeah, awesome. All right. So now we're going to go in there. We have x minus 8, x minus 3, but we have to divide by 2, right? So what's 8 divided by 2? 4. Good. 3 divided by 2 I can't do, right? So I'm going to pull that 2 out in front, and I make it 2x minus 3. Okay. Is everyone okay with that? Now, in my denominator, we usually always have x in front, right? So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as, make that as negative 18x plus 27. Okay? So since my first term is negative, I want to factor out a negative number. So what is my GCF between negative 18 and 27? Negative 9. So if I factor out a negative 9, negative 18x divided by negative 9 is a positive 2x, right? And then positive 27 divided by negative 9 is a negative 3. And the reason, again, I did that is so that my x is in the front, because if when we factored, wasn't x always in front of those parentheses? So that's why I did it that way, okay? So now, we kept the first one. We're going to change to multiplication, and we're going to flip this one. So we have 6x cubed minus 96x over x cubed plus 4x squared. So now we got to factor this side, okay? So what is my GCF between 6x cubed and 96x? An x, anything else? So I'm factoring this one right here, guys. Can a 6 go into 96? So let's do a 6x here. So 6x cubed divided by 6x is that x squared minus, what's 96x divided by 6? 16. Now, do you guys see why I wrote it above that? Because can I factor x squared minus 16 farther? Yes, because what is this? It is a difference of 2 squares. So now I'm going to take that to be x plus what? 4 and x minus 4. Good. Over, what's my GCF between x cubed and 4x squared? X squared. Good. And what would I be left with? X plus 4. Now I'm going to rewrite that first one now. Pen is dying on me. All right, so let's go ahead and cross simplify. What do I see in the top and the bottom here? That's the same. What do we see in the top and bottom? Do I see a 2x minus 3 and a 2x minus 3? Yeah, can I cross those out? Yeah. What else do we see? X plus 4 is, yeah. Anything else? Anything else? Well, they're both in the numerator, so can I simplify those if they're both in the numerator? No. What about this negative 9 and 6? Can I simplify negative 9 and 6? Yes, because they're multiplication, right? So what would that simplify to? 2 and a negative 3. What about this x and x squared? Can I simplify that? Yeah. So my x is going to stay on the bottom, right? Do I see anything else? No, I think I simplified everything now. So in the top, I have an x minus 4 twice. So how could I write x minus 4 twice? X minus 4 squared. I also have a 2. And then in my denominator, I have a negative 3 and a x left over. And that would be your final answer. Sorry, I kind of ran out of room. Okay. So do you guys understand why I say factoring is important? Yeah, we do it a lot, okay? Not just this chapter, but never ending. All right. And then example 2, I'm throwing in multiplication and division problems here at the same time. Do you think we can do this? Oh, and raise to the power. I think we can. Okay, so let's first start with, let's get rid of our parentheses, right? Don't we always have to get rid of parentheses first? So let's go ahead and raise everything to that power. So 2 to the third, x to the third over y to the third. Well, what is 2 to the third? What's 2 times 2 times 2? 8. X to the third over y to the third. Okay. So this is what that is. We have a division. So what do I have to do with the division symbol? Change it to multiplication. So what would I do with this x over y squared? I need to flip it, right? So wouldn't that be y squared over x? Now it's times x over 4. So since this is multiplication, do I have to flip the x over 4? No, that stays the same. Okay. So now, since this is all multiplication, guys, we can simplify anything, and it doesn't matter where, as long as it's in the top and the bottom. So let's look at this 8. Can this 8 be simplified with anything? Yeah, with what? The 4. And what does 8 over 4 simplify to? 2 over 1. What else do you notice? The x's. Now I have x cubed, I have x, or I have x here. Which ones would probably be the easiest to simplify? The x and the x. Why? They would just cancel out, right? So those are both 1s. What else do we have? We have these y's, right? What do I do with those exponents? Subtract them, right? So 3 minus 2 is 1. And where's that leftover 1y going to go? On the denominator, because the cube is bigger. Right? Is everything else simplified? Yeah, so what are we left with in the numerator? Ooh, I see a 2x cubed. And what is left in my denominator? Just the y. And there you go. Right, go ahead and do C on your own here. Go ahead and do C on your own. So the nice thing about the first two fractions, aren't they going to stay the same because it's multiplication? Yes, we're going to have x over y squared times 2 over x squared. Now this division needs to change to multiplication. So what do I do with the x over y? Change it to y over x. Good. Now let's go ahead and cross simplify. What do we see we can cross simplify right off the bat? The x. And which x do I want to cross simplify with? The x squared or the x? Probably the x. Why? They just cancel. It makes it easier for us, right? Okay. Now, I see a y squared and I have a y, right? How many is going to be left over when we subtract? Just 1. And where is it going to be located? In the denominator. So this is going to be y. Anything else? Nope. So in the numerator, I'm left with 2. And in the denominator, we have y times x squared. Is it okay if I put x squared y? We always tend to go alphabetical order. But if you put y x squared, it's not wrong. Okay. All right. Any questions with that one? All right. C. All right. So let's go ahead. Multiplication first. So c minus d. Can I factor c minus d? No. So I'll leave it as c minus d over c plus 2d. Can I factor c plus 2d? Nope. So I'm going to leave it as c plus 2d times 2d plus c. If you notice in all of these, the c is marked first. So can I rewrite that with c first? Yeah, 2D plus C, isn't that the same thing as C plus 2D? Yeah. And what about D plus C? That's the same thing as C plus D. Good. Now, divided by, we need to change that to multiplication, right? And I'm going to change that to D plus C over D minus C, right? So now, what I'm going to do here is I want to put my C first. So D plus C is the same thing as what? C plus D. How would D minus C be changed?
Negative C plus D.
Yep, negative C plus D. Is everyone okay with that? All right, so before I do anything there, okay, let's go ahead and cross simplify. What could be crossed out here? I like putting parentheses around. What can be crossed out right off the bat? Go ahead. C plus 2D, good. What else? C plus D. Anything else? No. So right now we're left with C minus D over negative C plus D. What do you guys notice about these? They're just the exact opposite, right? So let me ask you, can I factor something out of my denominator here? Yes, what can I factor out? Negative 1. Do you remember us talking about this yesterday or 2 days ago? If I factor out a negative 1, what would I end up with? Positive C minus D. Okay, remember when they were the exact opposite, I told you to factor out a negative 1 because now what do you notice about these? Don't they cancel out? Yeah, 1 over 1. So what am I left with? Just 1 over negative 1, which is the same thing as what? Negative 1. So if you ever notice that they're the exact opposite of each other, always, always, always factor out a negative 1. Okay, so if they're the exact opposite, factor a negative 1. Factor out a negative 1. Okay. All right. Now, D is going to take us a little time here. Why do you think D is going to take us a little bit more time here? Oh, yeah, of course. Yep. And the good news is we're almost done, so you won't miss much. Okay. Okay. We have this cube and with the subtraction signs, right? So it's not, we can't raise this to everything because 2p minus 7 cubed does not mean 2p cubed minus 7 cubed, does it? So anytime you see plus or minus signs, you have to make sure you write it that many times, okay? So if I'm looking at this, this is 2p minus 7 times 2p minus 7 times what? 2p minus 7. Those are not the same thing as 8p cubed minus whatever 7 cubed is, okay? You would have to FOIL all of this, right? And do you guys want to FOIL all of this? No. Now, in the denominator, 9 cubed is just 9 times 9 times 9. Can you do that math? Yes, but I'm not going to make you do that right now, okay? Now, dividing means what? Times, correct? Times. And then what do I do with this? I'm going to flip it, right? So can I go ahead and flip it at the same time I do the exponent? Are you guys okay with that? So 3 to the 4th power, isn't that 3 times 3 times 3 times 3? Are you guys okay with that? Okay. And then 7 minus 2p has to be written how many times? 4 times. Okay. Are you guys okay with that? So I went ahead and flipped it and used the exponent at the same time. If you don't understand, let me know, okay? Now, the reason why I didn't do 9 times 9 times 9 and 3 times 3, because can't I just cross simplify these to make it easier? What's 3 times 3? What's 3 times 3? 9. So can I cross out 2 3s and 1 9 at the same time? Can I cross out these 2 3s and 1 more 9 at the same time? Yeah. Do you see why I didn't multiply those out? Make it easier on us? Okay. Now, what do you guys notice about these? They're the exact opposite. So can I factor out a -1 out of 3 of these to make them the exact same? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this one here for a second. So we have 2p minus 7 times 2p minus 7 times 2p minus 7 over 9. You guys okay with that? Times, we have 1 on the top because all my 3's canceled. Now I'm going to factor out a -1. So if I factor out a -1, aren't I left with a 2p minus 7? If I factor out another -1, aren't I left with 2p minus 7? And if I factor out another -1, aren't I left with 2p minus 7? And then the last one, do I have to factor out a -1 on that last one? No. Why am I only doing 3 out of the 4?
Because there's only 3 on the numerator on the other side.
Exactly, Kylie. There's only 3 on the numerator on the other side, so I only need to have 3 of those off, right? So let's go ahead. Now, can I cross out 3 of them? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now, can we go ahead and now multiply? Yeah. What's 1 times 1? 1. What's 9 times -1? -9. -9 times a -1? 9. And 9 times -1? -9 times 7 minus 2p. And there you go. That would be your final answer. Okay. All righty. Is there any questions on that? Okay. Now, your homework, which is different from up there. It is right on campus, just so you guys know. All right. So if you're on Canvas, it is right in Canvas. It's just not right up there. All right. So you have page 253, 18 through 27 multiples of 3, 45 through 54 multiples of 3. Page 256, 12 through 45 multiples of 3. And then on page 258, you have the self-test 1 to do. And what do you think a self-test 1 is? It's just kind of reviewing everything that you've done, okay? Making sure you understand everything from 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3, okay? This is what's new here that's added on since last class. We didn't finish everything from 6.2, okay? You guys have a good, 25 minutes to work on this. You guys can stay online to work on it, ask questions as you need it. These obviously here, you're here. If you have questions, let me know, okay? And then Tori, you said you had some questions from homework too that you wanted to go over?
Yeah, I had to find it really quick, yeah.
Yes, John. Yes. Yep. I can go ahead and stop recording.